Alright, so it's going to be our notes on matter, and we started this unit by looking at the periodic table, and on the periodic table are elements. And we're going to learn a little bit more in these notes how elements are connected to matter, and there's some other words here. We see proton, neutron, electron, compounds, and we'll kind of go over those and I'll try to show you how they're connected, and maybe give you a little bit more understanding of why the periodic table is important, what you should know and be able to piece together about how this all fits like a puzzle. So you see, the basic definition of matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. Now, let me just get my pen ready here. It shouldn't take too long. Longer than I'd like. It goes. Okay, so we see has mass, takes up space, and these are really two measurements. Space is volume, so we have volume, and then mass is going to be something where it's made up of atoms. It has substance to it. It has stuff, sometimes they call it. And these two are the important definitions that anything has to have, or the important parts that anything has to have in order to be considered matter. It has to take up some space, some volume, and then it has to have mass. And again, that mass is just atoms and such. So then we look at matter, and we want to make matter. The basic unit to construct it is the atom. Okay. And they used to have a disagreement about what everything was made up of, and the Greeks and Romans and came along and kind of argued, and some said that matter was just forever divisible, so you could take a small piece and cut it in half and keep going forever. But then later on, some people came along and said that's not true about matter, but that there is this basic unit, and they've defined that as an atom. But it's been interesting, as time has gone on, they've discovered that there's actually parts that make up this atom. So we have a proton, a neutron, and an electron. And these here, the proton and neutron, really, if you look at an atom, usually it's something like this. They draw it like 3, and then you have this thing going around, maybe like this. Okay, and then you have these electrons here, and you have this middle part, that's the nucleus. And then this would be your electron cloud, EC, and that's kind of what an atom is. It has this central part, the nucleus, and in that central part are the protons. We'll put N next to them. That's the nucleus, and then the electron is in the electron cloud, so it's flying around out here, really a great distance from the nucleus when you consider the size of them all. And these electrons fly at certain levels, and they rotate almost like a planetary system where the sun's in the middle and planets are going around it. Electrons are kind of like that. Okay, but this is the basic unit. It all starts here, and then you take these and you put these together in different ways, and it forms other substances. One of them is an element, and an element is pure. Okay, and these are found in the periodic table, and we've been looking at them. And you have like hydrogen, H, you have carbon, C, oxygen, and then you have iron, and so on. There's 118 now of these. And these are divided up into metals and nonmetals. Metals have specific characteristics, conduct electricity, exist as a solid, so on. Nonmetals don't conduct electricity very well, usually gases, and so on. but you can take the periodic table and divide it into two main types, metals and nonmetals. And there's some other ones mixed in there, metalloids and so on, but really it's metals and nonmetals. But these are pure, and this means only one type of atom. Okay, that means hydrogen is only made up of hydrogen atoms. Carbon, only made up of carbon atoms. Oxygen, only made up of oxygen atoms. And iron's only made up of iron. And you pick any element, they're just composed of those atoms. Okay, then you get something a little different. I'm going to erase this. And you have something called a compound. Okay, and compounds are two or more different elements. So you can see here H2O, which is water, right? We'll change the color even a little bit here. So water. And it has hydrogen and oxygen. That doesn't mean it has one of each, it just means it has two different, because it says two or more, it can even be 3, 4, whatever, two or more different. Okay, and then each of these can have different numbers, so H2O. So hydrogen has 2, oxygen has 1, but they're two different elements, and that's water. So NaCl, that's sodium chloride, that's salt, table salt to be more exact. Okay, and again, 2 is 1 sodium, 1 chlorine. We'll talk about how to figure that out next week. And then we have C3H6O3, and this is a sugar. But again, there's at least 2 or more, and then joined together. And these elements and compounds are joined together by bonds, and we're also going to learn how that occurs as well next week. But these are compounds, different, 2 or more different. Okay. Then we have something called a mixture. So this is when you combine elements and compounds together. And the important part about that is how are they different? You know, like, because we're combining things here, hydrogen and oxygen, and you're combining things in the other one, iron, if we go back, hydrogen, whatever they are. But how is this different? And the one difference is they can be separated. Okay, they retain their properties when you mix them. So if you take water, let's say we have a glass of water. And then we take some salt. Salt shaker here. We add it into the water. Okay, this is a mixture. And how this is different than H2O is that water has certain properties, salt has certain properties. When we mix them together, they still retain them. They still have all those same properties. Now, it might change a little bit, some properties, but overall they're still water and it's still salt, and we can also separate them as well. So if we wanted to take the salt back out of the water, there's certain things we could do to accomplish that, and that's a mixture. A mixture could also be like a fruit salad. You have grapes, bananas, oranges, whatever. You put them together and in a bowl and you have a fruit salad, but you could easily separate the different fruits out, and that's what a mixture is considered. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to tell you about all this is, I'm going to erase this one more time, is that if you're a living thing, some of the elements that work together and some of the compounds that form are very unique for living things. And we use an acronym to identify those, and that's Sponge Cafe. And each one of these letters represents an element. So this is sulfur. And I'm not going to write them all, but phosphorus, oxygen, I'll just put oxy, nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen again, This is calcium, and then iron. And these are really the main elements. So if you looked at a living thing and you took all the elements that make it up, then you would find that this is the majority of them. We'll say phosphorus here, at least phos. Okay, so keep this one in mind when you take biology. You're going to be looking at these specific ones, especially oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, and hydrogen. Those are the main ones. These ones right here. Okay, so if we go back and review this real quick, we can see that the main parts of matter, the main basic unit is an atom, and an atom is composed of even smaller pieces of protons and neutrons found in the nucleus, electron going around the outside. If we take the same atoms and put them together and combine them to form something, they're pure because they're only made up of one atom. We call that an element. If we put different ones, two or more different, like H2O, NaCl, or this thing here, the sugar, then that's called a compound. And then if we take compounds and elements, we put them together, we form mixtures, like dirt. Dirt is a good example of a mixture. Lots of different compounds and elements, and we could mix them, separate them out if we wanted to. And finally, living things are composed of main important elements, and the acronym for that is Sponge Cafe.